Katawa Shoujo has some of the most effective emotionally manipulative psychology I've seen a game employ in recent memory. And I'm about to spoil all of the outcomes of all the decisions you make in the first act of the game, so if you're into visual novel-style dating games and haven't played this yet, what are you doing? Just go get it, it's free. So now, what do I mean by emotionally manipulative psychology? Okay, let me explain that in a way that'll hopefully convince myself that I know what I'm talking about. In other games like this, or in elements of this in other games, it's standard fare to be talking to the character whose affection you're affecting, usually by way of dialogue options, and the outcomes of said dialogue options are pretty heavily telegraphed. Oh, what, you're telling me I can fuck this guy? Gee, I wonder what'll happen if I say this.
I'm sure your letters home are very poignant. Just keep this kind of sentimentality out of the CIC.
So, with this information, you're basically able to pick your romance.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry to have wasted your time.
Oh, what, you mean you can't treat people like human feces and expect them to sleep with you? Shizune would be turning over in her grave, because I probably buried her alive. But that more standard setup could lead to some awkward situations. Like, what if I'm just a generally nice person who says nice things to people? Now they all want to fuck me. What the hell is wrong with you? Real life? Why aren't you like this? On the other hand, Katawa Shoujo flows a lot more naturally because the choices mainly exist to size you up, the player. They give you a lot of agency over who Haseo is. Which is why you should play through the game making each decision honestly and try not to predict which option will make you wind up with the hot one. Oh god damn it, no fire puns. Bad. But enough moralizing. The game writers took a lot of care in presenting these seemingly innocuous choices in a way that could accurately gauge your type in the first act of the game, and set you down a path with a character who you're likely to feel a legitimate emotional connection with. The decision points are basically like a personality test, because for the most part the outcomes are unpredictable. Take the second choice in the game, for instance. Ask about the library, ask about Shizune's deafness. I got everything I need to know. At this point in the game, it's only really early enough to tell that Haseo likes books and that Shizune is deaf. Traditionally speaking, these choices seem very clear. It would look sort of like, talk to Shizune about one of your interests, put your big dumb foot in your big dumb mouth, or keep your head down. Or perhaps, given the information so far, you saw the potential outcomes of these choices as something different. But that's not really my problem. Tell me why I'm wrong in the comments if you feel like it. Mechanically, asking about her deafness leads to nothing, which is an early, not so subtle way of informing the player that this game is not actually about fucking crippled girls, you sick fuck. It's like a warning shot, reinforced by several characters saying things like, it's only a big deal if you make it one. The other two choices serve to gauge Haseo's personality, passive or assertive, or alternately passionate or apathetic. You see, Shizune is a domineering tsundere cunt monster who doesn't approve of anyone who can think for themselves. All she wants is constant reaffirmation that she's right about everything. Yes, of course you told me everything I need to know. Yes, of course the only person who stands a chance of beating you is you. I don't know how to eat my own lunch. I'd better wait for you to tell me how food works. And the most negative thing you can say to her is, but I've already done everything you've asked of me. That's the most negative thing you can say to her, and still keep her affection. Or the third response asking about the library, which doesn't result in any response from Shizune at all. Which you might find odd because of how she chastises you earlier for not being familiar with the layout of the school on your first day. I hate it when people are afraid to ask questions. Yeah, unless those questions imply that you did an unsatisfactory job at something. While choosing this option is only giving you information about Shizune, it is giving you points towards Lily and Hanako, two characters who you haven't met yet. Mechanically speaking, how your choices affect your standing with each girl have very little rhyme or reason to them, which give the choices a far more personal feel. Hanako and Shizune are opposites, and that's reflected in the way that their affection is affected. Shizune likes someone who she can push around, and the more you let her, the more likely she is to take up more and more of your time. Hanako likes someone who will push her out of her comfort zone, someone who is willing to pursue her in spite of her shyness. The major positive choices you can make involving Hanako involve sharing interest and showing interest. Because the way this all works is that in order to be locked into Hanako or Shizune's path, you need to get 2 affection points for them twice in a row. But of the 3 choices that have the possibility of giving you points towards Hanako's path, she is only present for one of them. So her path is based on how much attention you give her. Do you want to spend more time with the cute girl who's into reading, even though she might react poorly to you approaching her? Hanako likes someone who is assertive and passionate, like a risk taker. And Shizune likes someone who is passive and apathetic, like a pushover. And this has been a clear-cut case of opposites attracting so far. But regardless of how you handle your lady situation, you'll eventually be confronted with the question of whether or not you care about your health. And this serves as an interesting pseudo-social override.
90% of the time, I have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about.
Because Emi, like Shizune, is a very dominant love interest. Unlike Shizune, however, Emi is only interested in you if you share her passion for going fast. Yes, she's very pushy and manipulative, but only to an end that you're already willing to risk your life for. She's kind of into offering you ultimatums in the first act, but they don't have any real downside to them, because they're all based on things that she has enough information to safely assume you want to do. Emi likes someone who is relatively passive but shares her passions, like a partner. And with that, we finally come to the girl who brings the whole game together, Rin. So you never make a decision regarding Rin. Well, okay, that's a lie. There is one decision, but it's a dumb choice, where the outcomes of each option are very clear. Even so, this choice works in the context of Rin's character. Without an actual reason for you to be around her, you simply wouldn't likely be around her ever again. And that's the core of why Rin is an amazing character. She's not that highly invested in you, and in turn doesn't expect you to be very highly invested in her. She's a very literal and goal-oriented person. In stark contrast with the other girls, there is nothing you particularly do to get on her good side. You're just part of her life by virtue of being in her life. What I mean is that Rin isn't fussed. To her, when you're there, and she'll acknowledge your presence, even though at no point does she ever expect to be impressed by you. So why does any of this matter? It doesn't. I wasted your time. No, I'm just kidding. All of these personality traits fit in perfectly with the way each girl is pursued. Hanako and Shizune are known entities from the start, and while they're pretty much polar opposites in terms of personality, they both appreciate a lot of attention, whether that be for emotional maintenance or free labor. This is contrasted by the two girls who are basically living their own lives. And then there's Lily, who is willing to date you on the condition that you get along with Hanako. So yeah. By taking charge of your health, Emi decides to pursue you because she sees common ground. But Shizune only pursues you conditionally, if you're a pushover. So the only way to break it off with her, without dying, but honestly isn't that a preferable alternative to being stuck with Shizune, is if you appeal to Emi, and thus you have to make a choice, which is related to one of the ultimatums Emi gives you right after you almost die. Go with the bitch who is demanding you follow her every instruction, or go with the girl who made you lunch out of the kindness of her heart for almost stopping yours. Hanako is the only girl who you actively pursue, so unless you call backsies at the last minute and decide to hook up with Lily, nothing is really standing in between you and her. But what happens if you're not the type of person who's willing to put up with Shizune's crap, and too respectful to pursue Hanako against her wishes? And on top of all that, you're lazy. Well, that's a uniquely rare combination of social ineptitudes. So it would be safe to assume that the only person you could reasonably tolerate is someone who did not give a fuck about you and whose every interaction with you boiled down to a very simple request. She's not the kind of person who would go out of her way to spend time with you. And she's not the kind of person who would appreciate you going out of your way to spend time with her. She's the kind of person who lives an unabashedly literal life free of bullshit and artifice. Anyways, the point I've been belaboring is that this game has 5 very well realized characters, and the psychology behind the choices you're presented and their consequences pair very nicely with the personality of the characters. And this creates a romance so seamless and natural that it makes me sad when I remember that Rin isn't real, and just hit the outro.